start. Here we go. So we were learning Hilchos Shabbos, of course. I mentioned Untying, 317, the laws of making knots and untying knots on Shabbos. And yesterday, I mentioned the idea of the fact that this is learned from the Mishkan. They used to make knots when they made the nets to catch the chilazon, catch that particular fish or snail or whatever it is, and they needed that to make tchelis. And it was just something we wondered about yesterday. Did they actually catch the chilazon, or did they just have blue dye that they bought from whatever Gentile people sold it to them? So actually that's discussed in the Mefarshim. Some say no, they never had the chilazon. Maybe they never even had the dye. All they had was the wool that was dyed with that dye, which is called techelet. Techelet is wool dyed with that particular dye. When the pasuk says that they have to bring a truma vasudi truma, it says uscheles v'agama. What did he ask the people to bring? Bakasha, we need tchelet. He didn't say we need chilazon. He didn't say go out there and make a hunting party. He said we need tchelet. That's it. So what did they do? They brought the tchelet, wherever they got it from Mitzrayim, from who knows where. That's it. So according to that opinion, we are even counting in the melachot of the Mishkan things that the Jewish people didn't do. But it was necessary for it to be done in order for the Mishkan to be built. Who actually made those nets? Whatever goyim did that job. And that's it. But because it was a necessary job in order for them to get the chilazon, which was necessary in order for them to make the chelet, that's also counted. Others say no. Whatever was done before the tzivui v'asuli mikdash doesn't count. Anyway, they say that chelet has to be dyed lishma, has to be dyed l'shem shamayim, for the sake of the mitzvah. So if they're going to buy techelet from the Egyptians or whoever they got it from, it's not going to count. They have to get the dye, and they have to take wool, and they have to make it. Even though the pasuk doesn't say that they had to get the dye, the pasuk just says they had to bring the wool. It's self-understood. How do you get the chelet? You have to get the dye. So according to that opinion, they actually sent out a search party, and the search party went and they made nets and they caught the chilazon and they made everything. It works. So basically, the answer is it's machlokes. One way or the other, somebody had to make the nets to catch the chilazon, whether they did it themselves or sent others to do it. Okay. So with no further ado, we are going to continue in the Alter Rebbe, Seif Gimel, which is where we were up to yesterday. Gimel, Ken. Shin Yud Zayin Gimel. But Medvar Mamorim, when does the above apply? That some knots might be considered to be a professional. We said yesterday, based on the Ramah, that's
70, please.
That's
Leave it 70.
It is on 70. Yeah, the compressor's not working. I'm sorry.
okay.
I just turn it off and then turn it back on, hoping that the compressor's going to start.
Okay. So the point is that we said that two knots, one on top of the other, might be a kesher shel Uman. It might be a expert's knot. Which, by the way, the Chazon Ish says, don't take that too seriously. Chazon Ish says it's just extra chumrah. Really, a professional knot means professional. Two simple knots, one on top of the other, is not really professional, but you do it anyway. The Chazon Ish says that's a chumrah. But in any case, however you understand it, it is only two actual knots. When do we say this? Oh, sorry, I forgot to say also, they question whether when you make a double knot that is not tight, you make a knot and then another knot, but you keep it loose, like a woman who's tying her shaitel. I'm saying she might tie it once and then tie it a second time, but loosely. She doesn't want it to be tight. She just doesn't want the first one to fall apart very easily, but nor does she want it to be tight, so she ties it loosely. Some say that that's also forbidden. The fact is it's a double knot. And some say no, the whole reason why the Ramah is machmer is because the double knot is tight, it's strong. But if you do it loosely, so that doesn't count. And therefore, it's mutter as long as you're going to take it off within the day and so on and so forth, according to all the, guidelines of how you can make a knot that's not professional.
The end of Gimel, it's a chidush over there.
I didn't get to the end. A little bit at a time. When do we say this? If it's two knots, one on top of the other. But if it's one knot with a bow on top of it, there is no doubt that it's not considered a professional knot. And therefore it is permissible to tie it and to untie it in any case, as long as it's not permanent at all. Meaning to say, if it is permanent, which some say means 7 days, some say means even more than 24 hours, you can't do it. But if it's not permanent, then it's okay.
So if you make a bow,
yeah,
and then you make again with the bow, you make it again.
That's a double knot.
That's a double knot.
That's a double knot. You can't do that. Can't do that, even if you're planning to take it off within the day. Although we did say yesterday that Yalkut Yosef does not hold that this is the halacha. Well, the Ramah brings it, but he does not. He holds it's a chumrah. It's a good thing to do, but it's not ikar hadin. It's not the main halacha. So for Sfardim, there's room to be lenient and allow to tie a double knot on the shoes as long as you're going to untie it within the day. Baruch Hashem. Okay. I'm just going to read note 17. Those of you that have the English
before we finish Gimel, right?
No, hold on. David Lev, you don't have an Alter Rebbe?
17 here?
No? Why not? You have one at home?
Look it up, right?
Yeah, that's a picture. That's a picture.
Yeah, let's see.
Note 17 says,
317.
317.
Siman 317, note 17. Needless to say, the leniency applies with regard to tying two bows one on top of another. There is, however, room for stringency if the tie made by a knot and a bow is meant to last. See section 651 with regards to binding the myrtle and the willow branches to a lulav on the day of the Sukkot festival. That source Alter Rebbe rules that it is forbidden to tie a bow over a knot, since one does not intend to undo the knot. In a related ruling, Pesach Shua states that one must be careful not to tie a garbage bag that one wishes to dispose of with a bow over a knot. One intends that the bag will remain tied in that manner for more than 24 hours. So if you want to take out the garbage, you for sure can't make a double knot, goes without saying. But even a bow on top of a knot, you can't make, because you're planning to leave that forever.
So what about just a bow?
That's it.
Right.
like to tie your shoes, a knot and a bow.
No, but it's not
Can't do it.
forever. I know they're
It
gonna
is
break
forever.
it in the garbage.
You don't
With the two
know.
handles?
Maybe yes, maybe no. As far as you know, it's
Just
forever.
handles and just-
Who says they're going to break it? They're going to throw it straight into the tip. Who
I
said
know
they're
they're
going to?
gonna- I know they're gonna-
They throw it into the garbage tip.
Yeah.
You think they're untying their garbage bags?
The machines
think they're bored?
break everything.
The machine, maybe it will break it, maybe it won't. It crushes it.
That's too much. for
Crushes
garbage.
Maybe it's going to break it, maybe not.
I guess
When it
not.
gets
No,
crushed.
after this garbage crush,
No, but it's
there's another machine with a knife, make everything like a small pieces.
Maybe not. I mean, no.
Without a ball, the garbage bag, without a ball.
So just a knot, single knot,
Single knot.
single knot, that's it.
The two
That's
handles.
it.
Two handles, that's it. Just once,
Just once.
that's it.
You live in the building, don't worry. You just open the bag and slide it down. It's good.
No, but
So are you saying that you cannot even just do a bow by itself, or?
A bow by itself is fine. A bow by itself or a knot by itself. Either one is fine. But you can't do a bow on a knot.
Oh, okay.
Sure not. Now, I did see a discussion. I did see a discussion about about a person who makes a knot on his garbage bag, a double knot. Is that a Torah violation or not? Because on the one hand, it's permanent, kind of. On the other hand, he doesn't care for it to be permanent. He doesn't need it to be permanent. He just wants it to be good until it gets to the garbage truck. After that, he couldn't care less. So it's only for him. He doesn't need the permanence. It happens to be that it may be permanent depending on what happens to it in its future, but you don't need the permanence. So different opinions about that. Continuing in number 3. If it only has one knot, without an aniva on top of it, that is not called a knot at all. And you are allowed to tie it or untie it even if it's going to last forever.
This is the chidush.
Chidush?
Leolam.
Leolam, correct.
Leolam, you're allowed to do that.
Leolam, you're allowed to do that, yeah.
It's not even a chiddush, is it?
It is a chiddush, because until now we learned that forever is a problem.
Even with a bow by itself, or
A bow by itself or not one knot by itself is not considered to be lasting at all. So even if you want it to last forever, it doesn't make a difference. It's not considered essentially a lasting item.
and that's the chiddush. Okay.
That's the chiddush. Now, this that we say that one knot is not significant is only when you're tying two things together. So then the force of each one pulling against the other one makes it not last. However, if, however, one ties them out at the end of a rope, a thread, or a strip of cloth, as in figure 31 below, it is considered as if he tied two knots, one on top of the other, with regard to all matters. All right, here you have it. Figure 31 below, my friends. Just going to turn this around for the class to see figure 31. See it? No, that's the garbage bag.
But it looks like they're-
It's garbage bag, but it's around itself. It's put into one big thing and then put into itself. So that even one knot is going to stay. There's nothing pulling it apart. It's not like two separate things that you make a knot. Just one knot is going to pull apart. But if it's the same thing curled around itself, then it's going to stay. Like tzitzis. If you take one, we discussed this yesterday. If you take one of these and you twirl it around itself and you make a knot, that's going to last. So that's a problem.
So that's forbidden.
Forbidden,
Even though it's
absolutely.
only one knot.
Even though it's only one knot. It is permanent, correct.
What happens if you don't make it tight?
I don't know. Probably better not, because it might become
It
tight.
becomes tight.
So probably better not, but I'm not sure.
I confuse that with the
Well,
Just don't tell the woman, that's all.
But could they do that?
Can a woman tie her hair in a knot?
That will not, and after
You
Shabbos.
do that stuff.
After Shabbos, they do it, that's right. Rabbit bin, that for the
They
hair.
twist it and whatever they do, they tuck
Yeah,
it
but
in.
they don't do nuts, anything.
I don't know, they're always playing with it.
Let's
That's
see,
what I know, they're always twisting.
let's see, like they do it, that will not, and they leave it after Shabbos. What happens?
No, the question if it's,
I think it's funny. I think they twist it around, they push.
No, but happens if they do that will not.
Push it in. There's the other.
I think I read, if my memory is not failing me, I think I read that it doesn't apply, that these don't apply in the human body. And making a knot in hair is not considered a knot for this purpose. I think I read that.
But you can't braid hair.
You can braid hair now. Can braid hair, but I'm pretty sure I read that in the deer shoe.
Okay.
That a knot in the hair is not considered a knot for these purposes. Yes.
I'm sitting on Shabbat table and my son said that Abba, I have a problem. And he has, in the pants, he has, the string, it was so long, I don't know, it tied here. It's tied. It's dangerous. So you allowed to remove that?
How?
Open it.
Yeah.
Not to cut it.
Any knot that makes itself can be opened.
Open, but not cutting the knife.
Even with a knife, we're going to see maybe.
Okay, but we open, it's good.
Open for sure. Because the rule is that if it happened automatically, it can't be professional. Understand? A professional thing doesn't happen automatically. You know, please, I think it's my son calling from distance. Hello? Yeah, hi, what's going on?
Anybody's spot?
If you're calling to talk, I don't really have time to talk, so I'm in the middle of a share. If it's something specific, then I can answer. Yeah, after 10 minutes of my time, if you can, if you'd like.
Just.
Okay, that's with you. Bye. Okay, sorry. You got my story? You got my story?
I only read a couple paragraphs. It's not on my phone, but what was it?
It was connected to respecting a wife, yes. Respecting a wife.
I figured, but I didn't get it.
Shalom bias, shalom bias.
Shalom Bayit is the, God is raised his name for Shalom Bayit, right?
Yeah.
So it's Baruch Hashem.
Yeah.
It's
The story was, I'll just tell it very short.
She's your slave?
There was a rabbi in Tveria, the chief rabbi of Tveria, actually. His name was Moshe Clears. Anyway, so his family would make a pilgrimage from Yerushalayim to Tveria every year for his yahrzeit. So anyway, they noticed that there was an old man every year who came to this pilgrimage. And they asked him, what's the story? Well, why do you come here? So he said, I'll tell you what happened. Basically, he said, when I was young, newly married guy in Yerushalayim, me and my wife would fight a lot, always fighting. And it was like a very bad atmosphere in the home. So I decided, that's it, I'm going to Tveria, I'm just going to clear my head a little bit and calm down, and we'll see what happens. So I went to Tveria, I rented a place by the Kinneret with a beautiful view, and it was already calm, I felt good, and I went to Dav Mincha. So I went to Shul, and the rabbi saw a new face. The chief rabbi of Tveria was probably a small city in that time, relatively, and he said, Shalom Aleichem, where are you from? Yerushalayim, what did you come for? Just to rest. So why don't you come to my house? Stay in my house. That way I'll get a mitzvah achnasas. You won't have to pay for the room. Everyone will be happy. I said, no, I don't want to bother you. And that. Anyway, the kids there, he insisted. So he moved into the house. So next morning, he wakes up. He sees the rabbi is bringing his wife Nagelwasser. Then he sees that he's making her tea. And then he's bringing her cookies, and he thinks she must be sick. I mean, obviously, if the chief rabbi of Tveria is doing this for his wife, she's obviously sick. So during the course of the day, he says, "Listen, I really don't want to bother you, and I'm just going to go back to the room I rented." He said, no. I mean, what's the problem? Is here? I mean, why? Our hospitality is no good. What's the problem? He says, no. I just realized that obviously your wife is not well, and I don't want to trouble you at this time. It's okay. It's fine. He says, no, not at all, not at all. I understand. You think she's not well because I serve her, and I'll tell you what it is. The Rizal says that before you daven, you're supposed to accept upon yourself the mitzvah of v'ahavta l'reacha kamocha. And Reb Chaim Vital says that the main focus of v'ahavta l'reacha kamocha is supposed to be your wife or your spouse. So I figured, why should I accept on myself the mitzvah of v'ahavta l'reacha kamocha and go find some person in the street to be nice to? I'll do it to my wife every morning. So that's what I do every day. So then he understood that the rabbi probably figured it all out when he saw him. And he invited him and he taught him a lesson. So he said, okay, I don't need any more. I went back to Yerushalayim. He worked it out. And he said, that's why I go every year to the yard side to honor him.
One of the guys in shul had a problem with his voice for a few months. Slowly coming back as it was wrong. So Friday night, I said, it sounds much better now. He said, yeah. I said, but you still can't yell at your wife. He says, I'm like a fish. That's all I do. He said, I'll never fight that over.
All right. Very good.
So sometimes we can.
I haven't learned that one yet, though.
All right, my friends, back to learning. So, now, by the way, I think we mentioned this yesterday, that if you do two strings together and you pull them around and make a knot, that is not considered a permanent knot.
Why?
Because you can't make it so tight. Because it's two, there's always space in between them. It doesn't get so tight. So it's therefore not going to be considered
There's no reason also to do that. So you don't do it on purpose.
I'm just saying does not have that
You're allowed
strictness.
to open it also in Shabbat.
No, you can make it if it's going to be temporary. One around itself, you can't do even temporary
No.
because that's so strong that it's the same as the double knot. You understand? If it's two around itself, then it's the same as any non-professional knot, which you can make temporarily and not permanently.
Now, I have a question. You don't have any knot. You wake up in the morning and you want to wear the tzitzit, you see one knot.
You cannot make a second knot. That's a Torah violation.
No, you see knot. You allowed to open it?
What do you mean? Where?
And the tzitzit.
Oh, the tzitzit's
One
got
of them is
tangled?
he got knot by itself.
Yeah. Any knot that happened by itself is not professional.
So you can open it. Shabbat.
You can open it carefully, so that you cannot tighten. You understand?
If you tight,
You cannot make this tight. This could be even a Torah violation.
This is Torah violation.
Even though one is already there, and even the second one is already there, but tightening them together could be a Torah violation. But on the other hand, if it's simply
one knot, like we said.
if it's just whatever, you can be very carefully take it apart. Just make sure not to tighten the.
Okay, it's good to
The
know.
Rebbe had something to do when you check your tzitzis on Shabbos.
Yeah,
That you keep your fingers on the knot.
exactly. Yeah, the Rebbe wrote that.
You
Yeah.
don't tighten them.
In order to make sure that you don't tighten the knot, because that's what people usually, when they check the tzitzis in the morning, you check it and you tighten. So on Shabbos morning, to make sure you don't do that, while you're checking, you hold the knot with your fingers of one hand, check it with the other hand, and that way that holding it will remind you not to do it. That's correct. Okay. Daled, Kesher she'ena nikar shel kayama min ha'Torah, ela medivrei seifrim, mutar l'kosher l'tzerech mitzvah. A knot that is not considered permanent min ha'Torah, only min ha'Rabbanan. You're allowed to tie it for a mitzvah. For example, you want to measure one of the measurements of the Torah, like we discussed yesterday, Tuma, Tar, or whatever. Even if it is a craftsman's knot, it's mutter. If it's impossible to measure it in another way.
Why would you want to do some kind of Torah measurement on Shabbos? I mean, wouldn't that still be usher, wouldn't it?
No, actually, no, it wouldn't be. Measuring for a mitzvah is mutter. Just like tying for a mitzvah, this kind of knot is permissible. Measuring for a mitzvah is also permissible.
Like, what would you measure? What's an example? I mean, I could get, maybe you're measuring a Kiddush cup for the proper volume, but I don't, a length measurement, I don't know.
The example we gave yesterday is if a window that was open between two rooms, if it had the size of a tefach by a tefach, which would allow the tumah to spread from one to the other.
Oh, okay, right.
A kohen couldn't come in, or if whatever was in, all the foodstuffs would be tameh and whatever.
Got it.
I mean, nowadays, you might still need to measure, let's say, a mikveh. See if it has the necessary amount of water for it to be a kosher mikveh. I mean, that's a measuring. I don't know why you would have to tie a knot for that, but whatever it is.
What was the case of not in for mitzvah?
In that case, they needed to tie a shard of pottery that had this measurement of the fist in order to put it up to the window, which they couldn't reach, and put it alongside the window to see if it was that size or not. That's the example in the Gemara. All right.
So that any type of knot for mitzvah? What was the knot that they used?
We don't know. But it was, for some reason, they needed to use a professional knot, and it was allowed for the mitzvah. Now, it wasn't permanent, obviously. There was no reason for it to be permanent. But it's still asma d'Rabbanan. The Mishnah Berurah actually says that this heter is only true according to the Rambam. According to the Rambam, who says, and the Rif, who say that a professional knot is forbidden even if it's temporary, so according to them, you have this heter. According to the Rosh, any knot that's going to be untied on the same day is permissible. Any knot that's going to be semi-permanent is forbidden. So what's the tzarech mitzvah exactly? Just make sure to untie it after Shabbos, that's all. You understand? You can make any knot as long as you untie it after Shabbos. So there's no such thing as a knot for a mitzvah. You know what I'm saying? According to the Rosh. According to the Rambam, it applies if you have a knot that needs to be professional in order for it to hold and you need it for a mitzvah. Do it. According to the Rosh, you can make any knot. No problem. It's permissible. You don't need a special mitzvah hat. As long as you untie it after Shabbos. So you'll untie it after Shabbos. Even if it's a mitzvah, you can untie it after Shabbos. So there's no case where you have this. Now the truth is that the Gemara does say that you can tie for a mitzvah on Shabbos. I don't know how we understand that according to the Rosh. That has to be figured out. All right, my friends, back to the Mechaber. All right. Nishbitu loy with suis minal lasan. Save base. Save base in the Mechaber. Nishbitu loy with suis minal lasan. If the straps of the shoe or sandal came out, oisha nishmat roiv haregel, or a majority of the sandal that was holding the shoe together came out. It's an unusual language. Nishmat roiv haregel makes it sound like the foot came out of the shoe, but doesn't mean that. Mishnah Berurah explains. It means that the sandal that was holding the shoe together came apart.
The bottom to the top.
Bottom to the top, or front to the back. I don't know how it worked. Mutter lahatzer or tzuis l'mkayma. You're allowed to put the straps back in their place, as long as you don't make a knot. So here's what we're saying, my friends. The straps go through holes in the shoe, similar to what we have today with our laces. So they came out of their holes. And you want to put the straps back into the holes.
So if you have new shoes on Shabbos, I don't know if you wear. If you have new shoes on Shabbos, you can't put the shoelaces in for the first
Cannot
time.
put the shoelaces in for the first time. That's where the Machaber says, Nishmetulay. They came out. That means they were already in. If they were not in before, putting them in for the first time is considered tikkun mana. It's considered like you're fixing something. And the Achronim say, Yeshua brings this, that even if they were in a different set of shoes, you can't transfer them to this set of shoes. In other words, this set of shoes had a strap. The strap breaks. You can't put in a new strap. So you figure, I'll take the strap off a different pair of shoes. No. You can't put any strap into any shoe if it was not in that shoe before Shabbos. Because otherwise it looks like tikkun, like you're fixing.
What if the shoe, sometimes they have it at the front flap in like shoes, or let's say mostly sneakers they have it. The front flap has like that elastic that attaches inside of the sole, inside of the shoe. There's an elastic that has like a band that's attached to the side. So like, even if you don't have some shoes, if you don't have laces, you take the front part and you can move it over.
There's a zip.
No. Some shoes you can move the flap or the underneath the laces.
Totally can't picture it.
This part, right here. Some shoes, you can take that part of those sneakers and move it all the way back here.
Okay.
But like, for example, for these, this is actually a pretty good example. I don't know if I didn't have laces on these, I wouldn't be able to wear them. If I'm able to wear them without laces, that's pretty much my question. I went complicated. I still wouldn't be able to put them,
Still can't.
even if I can wear them without laces.
Still can't. It doesn't say because you can't wear them, it's a tikkun. It says it's a tikkun. The fact is, it's a better shoe with laces. And now you're putting it in for the first time. So you are fixing that shoe. It's not the Eraisa, after all. It's not like mamish becoming one with it. But
What would be the difference if they are going to be put in for the first time, or if I didn't have laces on Friday and I want to put laces in Shabbos morning and I've worn them already many times?
Because now that you're putting it in, now it's something new. So it's like you're fixing. In other words, if it was already in and you're out back in, it's like you're restoring something that was already.
So there's no typically if I'm doing the laces on Shabbos, even if when I've worn the shoes already.
When you've worn the shoes with these laces.
Right.
These same laces, correct.
If I have laces on Shabbos and I want to switch laces.
Can't do it.
Oh, because why? What's the?
Can't switch laces. It has to be the same lace that was already there. You can put back. Even that has conditions we're going to see, but you cannot put a new set of laces into shoes, even if the shoes have been worn already. But now this lace is being put on for the first time, so it's now becoming part of the shoe, so to speak. It has to do with the fact that it's part of the shoe, because the poskim say, what about a belt? Putting a belt into your pants, your mamish fixing your pants. No, it doesn't work that way, because belts don't stay in your pants. You take them out to put in another pair of pants. So therefore, it's not really changing the pants. Whereas when you put the shoelace into the shoe and that's where they're staying, that's considered like you've added something to the shoe. Maybe
so what do you do? What do you do if the shoelace breaks then on Shabbos? So you're stuck.
You got a problem.
Yeah.
Mishicha is a rope.
Yeah, something like that, string or something.
So you're not allowed to put in the belt.
Well, what are you reading?
What? Because בגוד אין בשר בל או במכנסיים חדשים אסור להכניס שם.
Exactly. Exactly. As opposed to a belt, which is allowed, you cannot put a meshicha, which is like a string which stays there. Like if you have a pair of sweatpants and that little thing, what is it called? The string? You can't put a string like that in because it's going to stay there. Your belt you can put in because it doesn't stay there. But something that stays there you can't put in.
But if you leave the belt in.
You will fall down.
You leave the belt in the whole
You will
Shabbos.
fall down.
Not the whole Shabbos. It means,
I mean, forever. You can leave
if
it
it's
for
a-
5 days, like
no, not
fall
5 days,
down.
forever.
forever.
Like the shoelace, which stays in the shoe until it runs out. You know what I'm saying? Until it breaks. That's what we're talking about. Actually, they do discuss a type of belt that is made specifically for that pair of pants, you know? So a pair of
yeah,
pants
yeah,
might have,
yeah.
you know, like a same
it's a
color
belt
belt,
that-
same color, you know, fashionable, whatever. The ones that stay there, you wouldn't be allowed to put in for the first time. Came out, you could put it back. But you wouldn't be allowed to put it in for the first time. I don't have an easy answer. If your shoelaces break, you're in a tough spot on Shabbos. No, Daniel did. I'm looking at him, not at you. Sorry.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing you can do is you can restring it, you know, skipping every other hole
Sure.
so that you'll be able to tie it with less of the lace. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, so even if the old shoelace came out completely, or you could remove the old shoelace and restring it so it just skips
Yes.
everything.
Yes, you could restring it with the same lace, although there are conditions for that as well. We're going to see, but it's possible to do that, yes.
Okay.
Okay. Ubilvad shelo yikshor, my friends. The Machaber says you are not allowed to make a knot at the end of the strap or lace. Meaning to say, if you have a shoelace, so in order to make sure that it doesn't come out again, it's customary amongst many people to simply make a little knot at the end of the lace to hold it in place. Can't do that because that is a permanent knot.
Rabbi,
Yes.
I think this is a Roman shoes. You know, it's like the srofim is going like you said. You put it inside, but in the end you have to tie it around the leg and put knot over the leg. Otherwise,
A knot around your leg is okay. I'm talking about a knot around itself to hold it.
Okay,
You know what I'm
okay.
saying? So that it shouldn't come out again. You know what I'm saying at the end of the shoelace?
Double knot?
Not even a single knot.
So this tircha that they're talking about here,
Well,
one second, Daniel. 1 second, Daniel.
You want to tie this
1
loud,
second.
so you want to continue this. You understand?
1 second. I just want to explain what we're talking about. When you put the shoelace in, so especially when you have the shoelaces that are worn out and it's hard to put them in because they're, you know what I'm saying? You don't have that little plastic piece. So it's what people do is often they'll make a little knot at the end of it so it won't be able to fit back through that hole.
After 33.
That's 33. Shabbos says you can't do that. You can't make a knot because that knot is going to be like a permanent knot basically. Yes, Daniel, go ahead. Sorry.
So in this case, what if like the shoelace is really frayed? So sometimes you lick it to make it go into a point so you can thread it through the holes. So would that be considered a tircha?
Actually, we're going to see that right now. Let's see it right now.
Okay.
Where's the referee from?
Right now, I just finished the Machaber and I'm starting the Ramah on base. I go.
To add on his question,
Yep.
if the shoelace broke on Shabbat, if you make a knot and you know you're going to throw it after Shabbat to make it put a new one, because now you cannot
No,
change
you
it.
can't make a knot. Can't make a
You
knot.
cannot
That knot is like a double knot. One knot at the end of one thing is like a double knot because it's very tight.
No, it's together. This is break. So to put it together like this, so you can tie your shoes until after Shabbat.
Oh, that's not what I'm talking about. That's what you're talking about. That's not what I'm talking about.
Okay.
You're talking about if the shoestring itself breaks.
Yes,
If you're allowed to make a knot.
yes. So you can tie your shoes until Shabbat, and then you change the shoelace.
I don't know about that. Because we have here in the Dirshu he brings that a type of knot that people usually leave forever. And you are going to untie it after Shabbos because you don't want to transgress on making a knot forever. You know what I'm saying?
I'm stuck with no shoes.
I'm explaining to you the problem. That is forbidden. You know what I'm saying? In other words, normally if your shoelace rips and you tie it back together, you're never going to untie that knot. If you would do that during the week, you'd never untie that knot. Why do you want to untie it now after Shabbos? Because you tied it on Shabbos and you can't make a permanent knot on Shabbos. So now I'm going to untie it. You understand? But it's a type of knot that people would make permanent.
But I'm going to throw it in the garbage because I cannot use it.
I understand. The knot itself is usually a permanent knot.
Okay.
I think it's a problem. I don't know if there's a heter for that. I mean, לא חושב. Okay. The Ramah says, "V'davka shiuchel ha'achzir b'lo torach. Al tzorch torach lezeh asur b'chashin et shem yikshu." It's only permissible if you can put it back without a great bother. But if you need to bother a lot for it, it's forbidden. Because we're afraid that he might tie it. Where's Joseph? Where's Yosef? Is he on board? No, he's not here either. Let me text him. I know, 7 is far from our goal. What about Michal Ben Shetrit?
Right, they should trade.
Ronnie was in Israel, but he's coming back.
Yeah, he is going to check with you. Yeah. Shalosh. The neighbor, another 2. Shetrit is another 1. And Yos. You like that? Show. Take a look at this. It's a doctor, Chabal Lazman. It's a doctor.
You sent it to me.
I sent it to you too?
בזבזת כבר דקה מהחיים שלי.
Some will go. You don't want to be a doctor in China.
Okay, must be.
Without call.
Must be. Okay, let's go. Okay, so the Ramah says that it's only if you can put it back without tircha, without trouble. But if you need trouble, if you need to work hard to do it, it's forbidden because we're afraid that you might tie it. Now, the Mefarshim don't really understand this Ramah. What does it have to do, the fact that it's a tircha, to the fact that you might tie it? Rather, they say a different pshat. They agree with him in principle, but for a different reason. They say, if it's a tircha to put back, then it's considered like a tikkun kli. You understand? If it's so difficult to put back, if it's easy, and it was something that was there before, so then in, out. It's nothing new, and it's easy to do, so that's not a tikkun. But if it's a difficult thing to put in, even if it was there before, that's considered like a tikkun.
That's meaning this rock is broke.
Exactly. That's what you're asking, Daniel. If it's hard to get through because the shoelaces become frayed and you have to kind of squeeze it in and get it through a little eye and pull it, that's a problem.
Unless if you're sure to get the fire.
That's a problem. It's a problem. Okay, the Alter Rebbe, hey, nishbetule tzuas middle of the sandal. If the straps of the middle and the sandal came out, slip off. Put them back. As long as you don't make a knot at the end of it, so it shouldn't come out, because that would be a permanent knot. Exactly. Okay, here's something that the Ramah did not say, but it's brought from Tosfos, Rosh Magen Avraham. If it is usual in that place to make knots at the end of the strap, you can't put it back even if you don't plan to make it, because you might forget and make it. You understand? No, I'm talking about the shoelace.
Something for sure.
I don't know, do people make a knot at the end? Yeah, I think they do. Yeah, same thing. Same thing. If it's anything, yeah, same thing. Anything that people would normally make a knot at the end of it to make sure it doesn't come out, you cannot put it back, even if you're not planning to make the knot. You might forget and make the knot. Vanta? You want to put the string through the...
Let's say it's inside. One come out and one is inside. So you want to take it out. Because it went inside.
Here he's talking about the whole thing came out. And you want to put it in. So then we say that you cannot, first of all, you can't do it if it was not in before Shabbat. Because then it's like a tikkun, like you're fixing it. Second of all, we're saying you cannot tie it, a little knot at the end of it to make sure it doesn't come out again. Third of all, we're saying now you cannot even put it back if it's usual to tie it. Because you might forget and tie it. Understand? You're asking if it only one side went in and the other side is still out and you're just pulling it out. I don't know.
Rabbi,
I don't know.
we learn if it was there and it fell down, you're allowed to put it back.
Yeah.
So
If as long as you're not going to tie it, then it's not a place that you usually tie it.
that's what we learned about before.
If it's a place that you usually tie it, then it's a problem. So, even if it was there before, and even if it fell out, and you just want to put it back.
Okay, so before what they're talking about is nothing to do with the tie. Just to if it's fell, you can put it back.
Exactly. They didn't have the issue of tying in that place. Now, even in places that they don't usually make knots, you can only put it back, but you can't put a new strap into a new shoe on Shabbos, because that is a tikkun keli. You cannot put new shoestrings into a shoe on Shabbos. Here talks about a new shoe, but the Mefarshim will explain it's not about the fact that it's a new shoe, and it's not even the fact that it's a new shoelace. It's a new shoelace for this shoe. That's not allowed.
זה נקרא מכה בפטיש?
מדרבנן. תיקון כלי זה תולדה של מכה בפטיש, אבל זה רק מדרבנן, כי זה לא בעצם שינוי בתוך הכלי. אתה מבין? בעצם זה דבר חוץ ממנו, אבל כאילו זה נראה כמו תיקון כלי. אפילו לעשות תלך של הנקב, הוא רוחב יכול לעשות בלי תורך, אבל הנקב הוא צער שצורך תורך להכנס, הרצוי בסך את סגמאס, אבל עושים בתחילה ועושים שום תיקון כלי. Even to put it back, they only permitted when the hole is wide enough that you can put it back in without trouble. But if the hole is thin, and you have to work hard to get it in, then it's not like you're returning it, but rather it's like you're putting it in the first place, and it's forbidden because of tikkun kli. The same thing applies to pants, that you are putting a thread, whatever, a string through them. But a belt, I put it in the pants on Shabbos, because you don't leave your belt in the pants. It's always going to come in and out. Therefore, it's not taking kli. You cannot put a string into the pants like on a pair of sweatpants to hold it up, because maybe you will leave it. You cannot, a belt you can put in, because belts people don't leave in their pants. They switch it to another pair of pants.
What in case sometimes I leave but not all the time. Sometimes stay.
For how long?
Until you wash your pants.
Yes.
No, yeah, we're not talking about. We're talking about something you're going to leave it there, olam va'ed.
Shoes.
Like in sweatpants, with the string, you know what I'm saying?
Sweatshirt, sweatpants.
טרנינג עם החוט הזה. יהיה, אבל יש לך חוט. החוט הזה אתה לא מוציא אותו כל הזמן.
הוא לא יכול לצאת.
זהו.
תמשוך.
סגור, אבל הם מתכוונים שאפשר למשוך אותו בלי כוונה.
Such a string.
Sometimes you have just the things connect with some things.
Talui. The point is, if you have something like that, and you want to put the string in for the first time, that you can't, because that you're going to leave there. That string you leave. So that's what he's saying. Gimel, moving right along, my friends. Matirin beisatara mikasher kosher koivis she'ina kasher kayama. When they used to wash shirts, so the style was that they used to tie the opening of the collar closed, and they used to wash it that way. Don't ask me why. I don't know. Maybe they didn't want it to rip.
Not to lose it in the ocean.
No, they probably didn't want it to rip if it would be an open hole. And they used to bang the clothes with, I don't know. They didn't want it to rip, so they tied it together. They would wash it, and then they would untie it. So that knot is not a permanent knot. The washer made it in the morning, and he's planning to take it off at night. Okay, he forgot. Shabbat already. Okay, but it was not made to be a permanent knot. That you can remove. However, you're not allowed to open a neck hole on Shabbat, because that is a tikkun mona, that is a tikkun kli. If you have a poncho and you want to turn it from a poncho into a shirt, basically you want to open up the neck hole in a shirt, make it into a shirt basically, that is forbidden on Shabbos. That is an Isser D'Oraisa. That is tikkun kli, fixing a kli. Also
the belt, if it's too, if sometimes it's too big and you want to make it another hole on
yeah, you can make a hole in the belt.
It's a melacha.
Absolutely.
It's from the beginning, when you make the oil, you ruin. It's not clean, the puncher, because as soon as I see people, it's when they open new puncher, like this simple one that you throw after, but they make hole.
Where do they make a hole?
Side, you're not supposed to restart.
Where do they make a hole? I don't know.
The side of the puncher. You don't have a place for the end.
I meant.
This thing with the.
There are punches like that that don't have a place for your hands. Your hands walk around like a duck.
I
So I
don't
guess
think
he's
you're
saying ripping it through the Surah, no?
Low, yeah.
It's so.
Hang it there.
That's like a garbage
But
garbage
they
bag.
say no, it's a garbage, like it's not a key or something.
לא פשוט.
לא פשוט.
לא פשוט.
Because I think there's the rabbi there.
זה נותן לכולם, לא?
מה הוא אמר?
If I'm not mistaken, they did it. So
They did it, it's not a proof.
I know.
A lot of people do a lot of things.
No. But I think it was discussed because it was like when people heard what's going on, how it's possible, and then they have the rabbi.
Who's the rabbi?
They don't want to say, no? Because
Why?
No, זה לשון הרע.
Malo.
If he has said, he has a sin. If he said the rabbi, right?
Did he say anything bad? What did he say?
Yes.
I think
Yes.
it's
They're doing on Shabbat something you should not.
He said it's okay because they did it?
No, I think they did, and someone say something, and then there was some argument, and then I think they went to the rabbi because it was there. They knew that he's there, they should be asked.
Okay. I'll ask you later. Because if I know him,
I'm going to ask him
if I know him, I want to correct him. If I don't know him, I don't know if I can help him.
But he correct
But I
himself.
think it's a mistake.
before that. I asked him, that's how I said. I'm going to ask him about
He
it.
correct himself.
I hope so. Now, the fact that it's a throwaway thing doesn't mean it's mutter. And I'll bring you a proof. I'll bring you a very simple proof. Can you cut toilet paper? Throwaway thing. Ein lecha yoter throwaway me toilet paper.
Rabbi,
Use it first.
if you mention
I'm just saying, before you can't cut it, because the fact is, right now you're making a usable kli. You only using it once makes a difference.
Rabbi,
Right now it's a kli.
we mentioned toilet paper. We don't know how to cut. But for emergency, and you don't have it for beriot, beshinui.
Okay.
So if beshinui, so you're allowed
No,
to cut.
Kvod habriot is a special thing for being stuck in the bathroom. Not every kvod habriot is the same. Being stuck in shul or being wet, it's not the same as being stuck in the bathroom. Smelly. Yes.
No, I tell because for the health of the person, not to get sucking wet.
He doesn't have to go outside. He can stay in shul. There's many options. Or he can walk like this without his arms.
If anything, you'd be, if it doesn't have arms, why would you make arms? That means it's not gonna have sleeves. You're gonna have your arms out and get wet.
Right, yeah.
Makes you make a hole.
I'll give you a proof. I'll give you a proof. By the way, the whole thing that you can open up jars, right? According to those opinions that say you're allowed to because they're throwaway. It's not because they're throwaway stam. It's because the throwaway, they're considered like the klipa of the ochel. You understand? It becomes like part of the food. Since you're going to throw it away, and now it's guarding the food, so it's considered like a peel of the food. But it's not a klal that everything throw away is not a kli. Understand? Because if that would be the case, you would not be allowed to make kiddush on a plastic cup. Simple thing. If every throwaway thing is not a kli, you would not be allowed to make kiddush with a plastic cup. It's not a kli, it's a throwaway thing. See what I'm saying? Question?
So is that why you can open a can of sardines?
I didn't say you can open a can of sardines. You're opening a can of sardines right now by saying that. Absolutely, I didn't say you can open a can of sardines. But those that allow it, some do allow it, they will follow that. They will follow that argument. Yes.
Somebody asked me a question. What is the difference between a bottle of Coke that has a plastic top, not about plastic, and the sardine can? Aren't both kales? And I tried to explain it. But
and what was he saying? They should both be permitted, or they both be forbidden?
They should both be permitted, just like a Coke or soda bottle. You can
no, the difference is, you're talking about a can or a bottle with a
like this?
Bottle and a can. Yeah, something like this.
Okay, so the difference is very simple, that there the cap is already a cap, it's fully functional, it just has a ring around it. But when you open the tuna fish, I mean, that's something new. That opening was not there before. You know what I'm saying? You're actually creating an opening.
That's what I tried to explain to them.
Send him to Shir.
Yeah.
He has to go learn
He's a
something.
rabbi.
Oh, he's a rabbi. Then I don't
Rabbi,
know.
the sardine it's not open with the machine. You just put your hand like that.
So who said you need a machine?
You don't know. And this
we learned for weeks. We learned about it. You know, ask him. Chabad doesn't open it.
Spartan early.
Yeah.
The bottle.
Yeah.
The bottle,
Also, not only Sfardim, but yeah.
the
Sorry?
bottle, once it's open, we are creating a ring in the bottle.
if it's not open, also you're allowed to.
Some are strict, but many are lenient because they say the difference between the cap with or without the ring is not a big difference. Okay. We continue and we say, oh yeah, back to the Mechaber. Back to the Ramah actually. Haga, afilu kvar niftach, even if it was already opened. If it was tied or sewn back in a professional way, so he basically nullified that opening. He sewed it back up like an uman, like a craftsman. So it's like he turned it from a shirt back into a poncho. Or even if he tied it, but he tied it like a very permanent knot, not like a laundryman's knot, which is made to take apart, but like a strong knot, like it's made to stay that way. So you're not allowed to open it because right now it's like doesn't have an opening, and opening it is considered a tikkun kli. Lachein aser lenatek elachtech zug shaman alaymat from yachad kedei shom lenoisim afagav dat tvir einish kayam. Therefore, the Rama says it's forbidden to separate or to cut a pair of shoes that are sewn together, like the craftsmen do, even though the sewing is not permanent. The fact that the stitches are not permanent makes no difference. In other words, the
Can we
whole.
go back in the Mechaber now?
I'm in the Rama. Yeah, I'm in the Rama. On Gimel.
Oh, okay. I didn't know you jumped back. Okay.
Yeah, I'm going back and forth. Sorry. So, when it comes to a knot,
Can you just repeat the Mechaber, please? Then?
I have to.
Well, no. Okay, never
I'm
mind.
almost done. Matin b'sisav mikasher kasher kovish and kasher kayam avon pesach esem chadash misaken mono. Afilu kvar niftach hak shechazar umen ukshori tofer biyach gedach shuman hoisen. Well, I chayav lachan asel natik alachtak zug shuman alay matur biyach gedach shuman hoisen. Avakav da tvina shal kayama. Then chiluk b'tvir ben shal kayama len shal kayama. You're allowed to open a neck hole from a knot made by the washerman, which is not permanent, but you can't open it for the first time because you are fixing the keli. Even if it's already opened, if the craftsman, right, the tailor tied it back together or sewed it in a professional manner, it's forbidden to open it again. Therefore, it's forbidden to separate or to cut a pair of shoes that were sewn together like the professionals do, even though it's a not permanent stitch. There is no difference in stitches whether it's permanent or not. Listen carefully to the last point. When it comes to knots, a temporary knot, you're allowed to undo. When it comes to stitching, you cannot rip apart stitching, even if it was temporary stitching. Meaning to say he sewed the two pairs of shoes together, just so that when you sell it, they should be together. He didn't mean for it to last. Doesn't make a difference. Sewing, the laws of ripping what was sewn is different. We don't allow you to rip what was sewn, even if it was sewn temporarily. When it comes to knots, we allow you to untie a temporary knot. When it comes to ripping, we don't allow you to rip a temporary sewing. The sewing is different than a knot. A knot is more transitory. Is that the word? More transitory. Sewing is more permanent. So even if you personally plan to do it temporarily, it doesn't make a difference. That is all the first opinion, my friends. Some permit you to rip a temporary stitching because they say temporary stitching is also not a permanent connection, and you're allowed to rip it. What's the halacha? The Rama says, simple. Don't do it in front of an Am Haaretz. Meaning to say, it is actually permissible, but it could lead to trouble if the Am Haaretz sees you ripping. He's not going to know that this stitching is different than other stitching. He's going to think you're allowed to rip on Shabbos. So don't do it in front of an Am Haaretz, but privately you can do it.
What was this situation?
Where was sewn temporary sewing. Something was sewn together temporarily.
Like the shoes?
Like a pair of shoes that is going to be sold. So they used to sew it together just so when it's sold, they don't get lost.
The plastic is coming.
Exactly.
You're allowed to take it on Shabbat?
So yeah, according to this opinion, according to this, which is the main halacha, it's not in front of an Ma'aretz.
It's very funny, because you're allowed to take it on Shabbat, but you're not allowed to wear it because it's new shoes.
You can wear new shoes. Why can you wear new shoes?
New shoes?
Why not?
We said that before.
You can't
No, you can't
put
put the laces.
laces into new
laces.
shoes.
Okay.
You can wear new shoes, Vakasha. Best time, Shabbat is the best time.
Okay.
Sorry?
The opposite.
L'chvod Shabbat,
L'chvod Shabbat.
Vakasha, of course. All right, back to the Alter Rebbe. Daniel, you with us?
Even if it's
Yes, sir.
Excellent.
even if it's one of those knives, the plastic knot things we put in that they use for like handcuffs and those things.
Right.
But this is not temporary. I mean, it's there, it can stay there forever. You're supposed to rip it before Shabbat.
Oh, strong.
You buy new shoes and you have this plastic to connect them between. You're supposed to rip it before Shabbat.
Always better to rip before Shabbat. Always better. Question is, do you have to? What if you didn't? I'm not so sure.
Okay.
So you're saying maybe it's considered permanent because it's not. So the truth is that there's different definitions of permanent. Let's see what the Alter Rebbe says, and let's see. And the Alter Rebbe, you're allowed to untie the ties exactly of the neck that were tied by the washerman. It's not permanent. Most times they undo it on the day immediately after it was washed. You cannot open it for the first time. That's a tikkun. Shall be considered makav patash. This is chayav, by the way. What we learned about before with shoelaces is only drabanan. This is doraita, to open a bet hatzavar, to open a neckle. By the way, in case you want to pile on the isurim, the Alter Rebbe says there is no isur d'oraisa of koireya, of ripping, because in order to be chayv for ripping, it has to be on the condition that he's going to sew it back. Here, it's not like that.
And ripping's Rabbanan.
The ripping's d'arbanan if you're not going to actually sew it back. Now, if the neck hole was already opened, but then it was sewn back together or tied back together with a knot that you're not able to untie, so it's like a permanent connection. So now to reopen it, to cut it back open, is once again a Torah violation of tikkun.
You will sleep with that then?
Sleep with what?
With the shorts, if you stuck.
Talking about if it was
before you were
that opening was sewn back up, so it's not open, and now you want to open it up again. That's a tikkun. That's it. You can't do that. You're fixing. I feel like when the Torah says, okay, so but medram lo bekeshes kosher oman kodem marmalach lachas abeged shachati chasrut kesher yesh ba mishum makve patish lefi shum marmalach abeged shagdei kach sugan abeged little boyish v'kodem chalem sugan melam little boyish v'chodem shum marmalach yesh mishum makve patish when it's submission days. When do we say this? If it was tied together by the craftsman before it was finished, so that cutting them is makve patish, because that is the end of the work with the garment. Because through that, you're able to wear it, and before that, you couldn't. And whenever you finish something, it's makam patch, like we explained. If it was tied after they finished making it, for example, the washerman's knots, or the Mashichas shebektoinas, or straps in a shirt that became tangled and cannot be untied, are permitted to be cut. You should not be makel in front of ours. They asked him, you should do it privately. If one's ordinary practice is not to untie these straps except when he changes his shirt from Shabbos to Shabbos, it's forbidden to cut the straps just as it is forbidden to untie them. Okay. So hopefully we're getting some clarity here. Alter Rebbe says, when the neck hole was tied back up or sewn back together before the garment was finished, it's open and closed again. Why do they open it and close it again? I don't know. Maybe they wanted to wash it before they sold it. So they opened it, and then to be able to wash it, they closed it up again, and then finished washing it, they opened it again. But it was never yet finished and ready for the public. So that is makav patish to open it. Whereas if it's already being used and they sew it up temporarily, that's not makav patish. That is maybe a problem of koireya, maybe not. Meaning, say, after all, you are ripping stitches, but those stitches are temporary. So some say it's forbidden, some say it's not allowed, like we said in the Ramah. And the psak is to do it not in front of an amaretz. That's the psak. So coming back to your question about the ties, you buy if you buy shoes that are held together with a plastic tie. So on the one hand, we said the main halacha is you're allowed to rip a temporary stitching, not in front of an amaretz. On the other hand, maybe it's considered not temporary because it was made for more than a day.
Say Gimel, Rabbi, the Chidush.
What?
The Gimel said the Chidush about tie.
Now what?
You can remove that. Oh, I did not read it right. Look in Gimel, please. I said here.
Shema.
said, מותר לקושרו ולהתירו אפילו אם עומד להתקיים לעולם.
Oh, that's kesher echad.
קשר אחד, אין העניבה קשר אחד.
That's kesher echad, but פה, it's not even a kesher, it's more like a tefirah.
So עניבה is not considered that.
It's not an aniva. Plastic tie is not an aniva.
So
What are these plastic ties you're talking about?
Talking about, like they have for handcuffs, when they handcuff somebody with the plastic ties, you know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah.
So the question is, if you have that holding your shoes together, you buy a pair of shoes with a plastic tie. Are you allowed to cut that on Shabbos? That was the question.
Rabbi, I don't think this is a kesher because when you do like that, it's open by itself.
Yeah.
So it's no kesher.
Ken.
So you're allowed to open it then.
Aniva you can open, but it's not what I'm talking about.
My question from yesterday about the aniva, if I left it for 2 Shabbatot, even it's open by itself.
Oh, the aniva,
Yes.
No, you can't leave it. You can't do it on purpose to leave it for 2 Shabbatot.
No, I mean, if it's open, it's open. But if it's stay,
if you plan to leave it for more than a day, you cannot do it.
No.
Even an aniva on your shoes. I mean, people take their shoes off, but aniva on any knot, you can't do it if you plan to leave it for more than a day.
But why did they strict if it's considered no kesher? It's just round.
Aniva is al gabe kesher. You make an aniva al gabe kesher. Just an aniva without any kesher underneath, you can make, no problem. Talking about a kesher with an aniva. That's something that has some permanence, and if you make it for more than a day, it's a problem. The kids there is a general opinion that any connection that is made in a factory and with the intention that the consumers should break it is not considered permanent. I think we mentioned this in the past. Because the intention of the people who made it is that it should be opened as soon as possible. Even if they know it's going to take time with the production and transportation until they buy it. But they would like it to be open right away. So it's not necessarily considered permanent for that reason. So, a practical application, actually it's not so practical. Take it back. If you buy a new suit, for example, a new suit that has, let's say, the pockets are sewn together, so you can't use the pockets until you rip them open. You know what I'm saying? That would be a serious challenge to rip it. I think it's Maka B'Patash. Because that's how it came from the factory. It was never opened yet, you know what I'm saying? So you're actually completing it and fixing that last part of it.
Yeah, we learned that this is the right type of Batish.
Could be.
You finish the melacha.
Rotating the thread from the back.
It's also.
I think so. I think
It's also we'll
I
study
think it's
that.
a problem.
It's you finish the job.
I think it's a problem.
Is there anything in Samaka Patch or something that you couldn't use just as normally before?
No, I don't think so. Atzor Tzura B'Kli is Maka B'Patash. make a design on the kli. Of course, the kli could be used without the design, but it's still nicer with the design.
Wow. Right, so they're.
And so the thing is, if you have something, even if it's sewn onto your garment, but it's after the garment is made, in other words, you already bought it, you take it to the dry cleaners, and they sew on a little piece of, label saying number of so-and-so. So the ikar halacha is that tefirot that are temporary could be ripped. You know what I'm saying? But here, because it comes from the factory with that little X, it's never really fit for wearing until you take that off. So that would seem is makabah patash. That's what it would seem.
I know we spoke about this, I just have to ask because I don't remember the halacha. The dry cleaning, like a piece of paper that's
Yeah.
stapled at the end.
Yep.
What's a way to take that off?
No, let's take suggestions from the class. Here, just like that? No problem?
You try not to tear the numbers or the words or anything. That's it's a bigger problem if you take the staples off.
Why, we don't know.
Why is it a bigger
Number
problem if
over
you're,
there.
why is it a bigger problem taking the staples?
Because that's permanently done. It's made to stay.
You're saying it's like a stitch? Is that what you're saying? Staples like a stitch? It's not permanently done. It's not made to stay. It's made till you pick it up. It's made till you pick it up. They don't want
The tab is made to take off.
No, they don't want you to keep the staples in.
No, I'm saying normally, I don't think you can take staples apart normally.
No, take staples apart.
I
mean,
take one piece of the paper which has the staples going through both of them, one of them out, and then you just take it.
Yeah. The thing is, ripping the paper is one option, actually. According to the Alter Rebbe, there is no issue with ripping paper.
There's words in
Unless
it.
it's without the words. Make sure not to rip the words.
So by tissue paper.
That's a tikkun kli. Alter Rebbe holds that there's no kareya if it's one bush. You understand? Kareya is only if it's made of like threads. But if it's made of one thing, like a chatichat or, there's no kareya. Now there could be machatach if you're doing it in a measured way. It could be tikkun kli if you're making something with it, like tissue paper, toilet paper. But if you're just ripping and throwing it out, it's not kareya according to the Alter Rebbe. And I mean, the Mishnah Berurah, I think, would agree for a different reason, because he says kareya is only when what you rip is going to be used. You know what I'm saying? Here you're throwing it out. I think the ripping the paper is one option, but I don't think it's forbidden to take out the staples either, because that's like tefira. I mean, that's like a stitch. It's like a metal stitch, but it's like a stitch. But stitches, we said, that are temporary, the main halacha is that you can take them out. That's the main halacha. So I think either one. I think either one is fine. Other option is to leave it in. Even with an eruv, even without an eruv, the poskim say if it doesn't bother you, then it becomes like bottle to the garment. It's not important.
Yeah. Sometimes in the jacket it's fine because you can't see it, but in the shirts they put on one of the buttons.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Most time you can see it, they put it high enough up that it's usually around here or something.
Yeah.
No, but anything you wear without a rule, it's considered to your clothes. Right?
Anything you wear?
Like all the clothes, jacket.
Yeah, anything that's normal to wear. You can't wear a book.
What
You know
about
what I'm
the talita?
B'akasha, lama lo.
But you don't wear it all the time.
So what? When you wear it, you wear
So
it.
this is considered like your clothes.
Betach. Just like your winter coat. You don't wear it in the summer, but when you wear it, it's your garment. Sorry?
If you leave the tag on, isn't that like leaving buttons on your shirt?
Now, buttons on your shirt, you have a use for them. They're not nullified. I mean, according to the opinions, there's different opinions. But eventually you're planning to take them off. But here, you don't care less about this, on, off.
I've had buttons on my shirt for 40 years, and I've never used
I
them.
know. That's the argument. The argument is that people don't really use them. They're just left there. They're kind of not important. That's the pro argument. Okay.
Maybe if a button would come out, he would fix it? Does the halacha say that we're, intermediate, what's the word, beginner sew people? You know how to sew in the minimum sense?
What?
Saying if a person loses a button, let's say in the middle of the day,
Yeah.
so maybe he would try to take a thread in something and take out one of the buttons and put it in.
What's your question? Yeah, I don't understand your question.
Like in your glasses, you're talking about if you lost one of the handle.
No, I'm saying that to the problem of having extra buttons, meaning a button comes out, yeah, but buttons don't come out so often. But if they do, then a person would put that new button on the shirt.
Maybe.
Asking if that's like the
Other opinion?
what?
That's the other opinion?
Like that, tearing the letters. I can understand tearing letters, Hebrew letters, but regular letters, that's why I don't.
No difference. No difference in Hilchos Shabbos between Hebrew, English, Yiddish, Chinese, Arabic. Makes no difference. Person who writes in any language is chayav. Person who erases any language is chayav.
We have to write 2 letters.
Two letters.
And then once you write one,
Huh?
A.
Doesn't make a difference. Doesn't make a difference.
Letter A.
So what? Doesn't make a difference. It doesn't make a difference if it's a word or not. Even one letter that's a word is still not awesome.
Doesn't matter.
Yes,
A letter in Chinese is a word, huh? Are most letters in Chinese words?
Is there a letter in Chinese?
They're all words, right?
Yes.
Or they're all-
No, it says this. It discusses it clearly. If you write, in the olden days, they used to write tough, and it stood for truma. So that was a word, but it's still not chayiv. It's only chayiv if you write 2 letters.
But you shouldn't write one anyway.
No, should not one anyway. No. Bamedvar Mamurim 7 Bikshira Tafar Koivis as based at Saber was still not the Rebbe. Shenzuk Lamat for Miach Deshul and Oisim also the Khatel Nak Zamize. Shin Khiluk Tur Bet Shalkayam and Shalkayam, Ladan Mish Stiras and Mishum Karea. Ashkari and Khayr Ladan Kino Isam Nasit, Muhammad the Sefas Khalidi, Yishmutim at Fish and Shalkayam and Atak Lachtef and Iker, Kamak Lak of Tham Arts. When does the web apply? When the strands of a collar's openings are tied. If, however, a launderer sewed a collar's opening closed, and similarly when shoes are sewn together, as the practice of craftsmen, it's forbidden to cut the stitches that separate one shoe from the other. The rationale is that unlike tying and untying knots, with regard to sewing, there is no such distinction between permanent and temporary sewing. Instead, undoing stitches is always associated with forbidden labor of tearing. True, one is liable for tearing only when he tears with the intent to re-sew. Nevertheless, it is forbidden to tear in any context. There are authorities to permit separating or cutting stitches that were not sewn permanently. Fundamentally, the halacha follows this approach. Nevertheless, one should not follow this leniency in the presence of an unlearned person. Okay, this is all clear. We already said it all in the Rama.
It's not a leniency for Tom. It's not a leniency just for Tom.
No. As long as they don't do it in front of people who don't know the halacha and may understand incorrectly that you're allowed to rip things. Just generally.
So Namar, it's someone who, like that's the definition. Someone who saw it.
Someone who doesn't know halacha, basically. In other words, you're not going to test him and ask him. A person who generally doesn't know halacha, you don't do it because he may come to be lenient improperly as a result of it. Of course, the truth is, if you would know this halacha, you would be allowed to, but we're not going to. It's just not practical to test him, so we just say not to do it. Okay. Now we learn a lot of very interesting things that used to be relevant, Lamaisa. Nowadays, we don't really go to the well to get water. I can't remember the last time I tied my cow indoors. But nevertheless, it's halacha, and we learn it. Here goes. You're allowed to tie a bucket with a meshicha, which is a string or a belt or anything similar. You can't use a rope because you might leave the bucket attached to the rope permanently. talking about the wells where they used to have a bucket that they left there. And that's in the times that they left the bucket attached to the well. But if it's in a time like nowadays, the time that the Mechaber was writing this, where they didn't leave the buckets attached to the well, they would take them back indoors. So therefore, tying it was always a temporary knot, and it would be allowed even with a rope. In a place where they did it and left it there, it would only be allowed with a belt or something else that is not normal to be there, so you'll definitely remove it. I'm going to read through all the Mechaber till the end of the Siman. Aniva mutar, the lav kasher, v'afila masa kasher echad, lamata noegin boyheter. Okay, a loop is okay. An aniva, which is a loop, right? A bow, is not considered a knot. And the Ramah says even if you make a knot and then a bow on top of it, it is permissible. Now the Ramah, the Taz and Magen Avraham both say, and everybody else that I've read agrees with them, that this is only if it's temporary for the same day. If it's more than a day, you cannot do a bow on top of a knot. That's not a professional knot, but it is a knot, and therefore it's forbidden. Practically speaking, if you have a old-fashioned gartel for a Sefer Torah, which didn't have clasps, didn't have Velcro, and you actually tied a knot at the end of it, so Shabbos morning, you can do it. You're going to take it off within 24 hours. Shabbos mincha, you have a problem. Because you're making a knot, it's not going to be undone until Monday morning. You're making a knot, I'm talking about with the old-fashioned type of gartels of the Sefer Torah, which was just a long sash, and you would wrap it around and make a knot and a bow. That's a problem. On Shabbos afternoon, you're leaving it there, and you're not going to take it away till Monday morning. It's more than 24 hours. That's a problem. Yes.
Question. In the Torah, sometimes this one is too big, so you have to go like this, and then you hold it. That's
okay.
It's okay.
That's okay. So some say you should not do that. You should only just wrap it around and around and tuck it in. Just tuck it in instead of. Others say no. It's like a mitzvah, makkah mitzvah. We said you can make a rabbinic knot for a mitzvah. They say it's like a mitzvah. You're holding the Sefer Torah in place.
Another thing, Velcro.
Well, if you have Velcro or the clasps, then you get out of the Velcro.
Why they were allowed to separate Velcro? Because there's little hairs. Aren't you pulling them apart?
Yeah, but it's made to pull apart. It's not like it's really connected because it's made to separate and pull apart. So it's not considered like it's so.
Packages that are made to pull apart. We can't do that.
What?
Because they're made to pull apart. Normally we don't open.
Made to pull apart, like what?
Food package. Well, that's food you're allowed to do it.
No, the point is because this is made to open and close constantly. The packages, you don't open and close them constantly. You open it once and that's it. You throw it out. Here, because it's made to stick and non-stick, so it's never considered permanent. You understand what I'm saying? It's considered like it's not really one.
What about a package that once you open it, that has a self-seal, it has a
What
do you call it?
Yeah.
Zipper,
The zip, there's no zipper, you just pull with your fingers.
Ziploc.
Ziploc.
Yeah. Are you allowed to tear the top part off and then use that?
I don't know. I don't do it because I don't know.
I'm trying to probably do everything before Shabbos. I don't have that problem anymore.
No, I have that problem. I can do it for Shabbos. I have Shalosh Shudas in my house every Shabbos. And you know, people bring their own stuff. It's BYO, and there's one guy who always brings that exact type of chip bag. And every Shabbos I have the same issue.
If someone opens it, will you use what's inside it?
Yeah, I would use it. It could be it's even permissible. I'm worried that maybe it's considered like a nice opening. Like you're allowed it's certainly not a important keli. It's certainly like an unimportant keli, like a mustaki. We said you can break it open, but you can't make a nice opening. So that's what I'm
cut it, you make a nice opening, but if you tear it, you don't. Because you have two pieces, they start this way, and when you tear it, it usually ends up this way.
No, what I do is I tear it. I don't cut it. I just slice it down the sides where it's not supposed to
a
be.
little notch
So
on the side, you can just pull and tear.
whatever. I just tear it not where it's supposed to be. So it shouldn't be like a nice opening. It should be like a tear. Anyway, the point is, koshrin chevel b'fnei para, the shoshaloi tetze. You can tie a rope in front of a cow, so it shouldn't go out. Vafilu b'shnei roshei pesach. You can even tie it on both ends. You can tie it even though you're tying both ends. You know, you have the cow in the field. At the opening, you have an opening, and you're going to tie a rope from one end to the other end. Now, you're going to have to undo one of these to let him out, but you can leave the other one. Yeah, the chances are one day you'll undo this one day you'll undo this one. You're not going to leave it there forever. And finally, you're allowed to take a rope of a tailor and tie it to the avos, which is the trough, and the cow. We don't say, well, if you're tying it both to the cow and to the trough, maybe you'll just undo one side and leave the other one tied to the trough. No, but it's a chevel shel gardi. This is a rope that is used by the tailor. So he uses this rope. You're not just going to be able to leave it there.
The part where you have a rope that goes across, you have, I guess, opening of a fence.
Yeah.
If you have one knot that you make it's permanent, you never open it. And it's made in such a way that it'd be very difficult where the other one's easy. On Shabbos, could you use it? So
Can't make the permanent one, but you can make the other one.
You're not going to, because
Can make the other one, sure. We're talking about a case here where they're both temporary. But if one is permanent, then obviously you can't make that one. You can make the other one. You can't use a regular rope. That's only if you're tying both ends. If you have a regular rope that is already tied to one of them, you want to just tie it to the other one, then it's allowed. You can't tie it to both because one may end up being permanent if it's a regular rope. But if it's already tied to one, you're allowed to tie it to the other because the chances are you're going to undo the one that you just tied. If it's already attached to the trough and you want to attach it to the cow, that's allowed because just like you had that from before, you probably leave that from before. And what you'll untie is the one that you just tied. So that's allowed. I'm going a little bit fast through these because we don't really have them. Ches, koshen dli api abor b'mshicha b'avnul chayetz b'davar shnevat l'sham, avalei b'chel neshim b'vat l'sham is the kasher shekayam ashrei hadli tolim kasher sham tamid, fila b'chel shal gardi shu chashuv v'nevat l'sham also gzer mishum shach aval. When they tie a bucket at the opening of a cistern with a string, a belt, or a similar entity that he will not leave there permanently, one may not ever use a rope because he will leave it there permanently. Thus, he will have tied a permanent knot. For the bucket will remain hanging and tied there for all time. It is even forbidden to use a weaver's rope, which is important and therefore will not be left there permanently. This is a decree instituted lest one use other ropes. The medvar more bit loyim hakvuyim babor. I would learn shalom shneim from babor and ikesh lakem and without for the b'shachavalam. Uvash loyim yakashem ma'ase uman shasa for the ben shalkem and she's brother ma'ila. To what does the above apply? To buckets that are permanently attached to the cistern. In contrast, when one ties buckets like those of the present age that are not permanently attached to the cistern, he does not tie a permanent knot. And it is permitted to tie the bucket even with ropes other than weaver's ropes, rather than not as not a professional one. Tying such a knot is forbidden even if it's not permanent, that's explained above. Kosher test in the Alter Rebbe. Kosher chevel b'fi hapor b'reichel ha'pesach l'shalei tetzeh. Nation shalkem shas l'hatir tadar l'hoitzi yameim l'ashkoiza. One may tie a rope across the width of an opening with a stall in front of a cow, so that will not leave the stall because the knot is not permanent. Instead, it is likely to be untied frequently to take the animal out to water it and the like. ואפילו לקשור בשבס שני ראשי חבל בשני צידי הפסח שלא תלוי כל פסח ואסמל מותר. וחושן שם יבטל ראש אחד שיהיה כשר לעולם ויצא בהמה באתר של השני בלבד, אלא לפעמים את ראש זה, לפעמים את זה, אבל הם באמס. מבטל ראש אחד אסר. Moreover, even if the rope was not hanging across the opening on Friday, the person is permitted to tie the rope across the entrance of Shabbos on one end attached to either side. There's no concern that one will leave one end of the rope tied there permanently and always take the animal out by releasing on the second end, because the common practice is that even when one releases only one at the ends, at times we will release one end, at times the other. If our vehicle will indeed leave one end tied there permanently and never release it, tying it is forbidden. Called kasher shlafamim nimlach umavatle lo'ilam. Afal pi shebetchilas asiyase. Einay ela amanas levatle also shemi malach vivatlena lefikach. Also little chavet lakosher be'imos upar. Shema kshiyis lechabei malei to lo'ilam le'orei shachad v'nei chashin kam lo'ilam v'yekash lokayam. Whenever it is likely that a person will change his mind and leave a knot permanently in place, it is forbidden to tie it, even if initially he did not intend to leave the knot there permanently, lest he change his mind and leave it there permanently. For this reason, it is forbidden to take a rope and tie one end to a feeding trough and the other end to a cow. For perhaps when he desires to lead the animal away, he will untie one end of the rope and leave the other knot for all time, causing it to become a permanent knot. And Lizakan Hashem Gardim Shum Shar Chavalim Neshigam B'Shachvalim and Motzi Shivat L'Reshach L'Olim Elfamat Hazeh. To what does the above apply? To ropes in general. It is however permitted to use a weaver's rope for this purpose because one will not leave it there permanently. In this instance, a decree forbidding the use of a weaver's rope lest one use other ropes is not issued, because with regard to other ropes, it is not common to leave one end tied there permanently. Instead, at times one unties one end and at times the other. If one all the above applies to tying a rope to both the feeding trough and the cow on Shabbos. Whoever rope is already tied to a feeding trough and one desires to tie to the cow on Shabbos, or it was already tied to a cow and one desires to tie the feeding trough on Shabbos, it is permitted to do so with any rope rationales that even if one will leave one of the knots tied for all time, it can be assumed that the knot that was tied originally will be the knot that he will leave tied. One more, my friends. Yud Aleph. We did not learn this, by the way, yet. So this one you actually have to pay attention to. When a person twists strands into a cord, how do you make a rope? You take many little things and twist them. Regardless of the type of material used, he is liable for performing a derivative of the forbidden labor of tying. The Rambam holds that making a rope, twining a rope together, or for that matter with tzitzis, you know what I'm saying, taking little threads and making them into a big thread, is considered a tulda of kosher. The measure required for one to be liable according to scriptural law is a cord long enough to remain twisted without having to be tied at its end. Thus, the work you perform will endure. According to rabbinic law, making even the shortest cord is forbidden. Similarly, one who separates a thread of a cord is liable for performing the forbidden labor of untying. The minimum measure of liability is the same as for making a cord. Such a person is liable only when he does not have a destructive intent. For anyone who performs a forbidden labor with destructive intent is exempt according to scriptural law. His act is never forbidden according to rabbinic law. So if you unspin a tzitzis string, if you unspin it, that's a violation. If it would be for any constructive purpose, it would be a Torah violation. If it's just for fun, it's a rabbinic violation, but it is a violation.
So undo it.
I'm sorry?
So because you are undoing
You can't do it, you can't undo it. Just leave it. Doing it would be like
just
kosher.
watch it.
Undoing it would be matir. Now the truth is that this is a question because usually we know that matir is only chayev if it's amanas liksher for the sake of retying it. Here he doesn't say that. He said if you separate the threads of a cord, you're chayev, regardless of whether you're planning to redo it again. So the truth is that the Rambam holds that you're chayev for untying, even if you don't have the intention of retying. It's machlokes rishonim when it comes to untying, if it has to be with the intent to retie or not. When it comes to destroying, it's only with the intent of rebuilding. Putting out a fire, only with the intent of relighting a fire, and so on and so forth. But here, some rishonim say that untying is different, and untying is a malacha even if he does not plan to retie. For more information, read my email from this coming week in Mitzvah Hashem. Planning to write about it.
Rabbi.
Pleasure. All right, David, I did see your email about tying shoes, but I didn't get a chance to read it properly, so I'll have to address it another time. Have a good night.